very good Monday, November 27th to everyone. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Hope everyone also had a great Black Friday. If you had any kind of Friendsgiving parties like I did a little shopping, just used the time to recover, watch some football. Hope everyone's taking advantage of those great Cyber Monday deals out there today as well. But we actually are right down to the very end of the college football season. As a matter of fact, the end of the regular season takes place this weekend with all the conference championship games. So we'll know the four teams essentially that are going to be in the playoff by by the time we all wake up on Sunday morning. Unless you're out on the West Coast, then you'll basically know how everything's going to shake out by the time you go to bed. But one team who won't be playing in a conference championship game are the James Madison Dukes. Now, the Dukes started as at least their college football program in 1972, and then they came in as Division III, jumped to 1AA in 1980, and since then have been national runner-ups in 2017 and 2019, but were national champions in 2004 and 2016. The Dukes jumped to Division I for the 2022 season. Now, as a result of that, the NCAA has a program in, and we'll talk more about how this is unfair to the school as opposed to the player here in a couple of moments. But whenever you jump to the Division 1A ranks, you cannot participate in any postseason games, whether it's conference championship games, the BCS playoff, or even a bowl game for 2 years. The Dukes finished 8-3 last season, which was certainly good enough to have them qualify for a bowl game, but they were ineligible. The Dukes started out 10-0 this year. Now, the Dukes last year in Week 6 were the first Division 1A school to ever be ranked in the AP Top 25 in their first year at the Division I level, since because the AP poll has not been around since the start of the college football ideal, over 125 years ago. But the Dukes, again, coming in at 24 and yet not playing in a bowl game, the Dukes this year started out 10-0 and got as high as 18th just a couple of weeks ago. The Dukes were upset by Appalachian State 26-23 in overtime just 2 weeks ago, kind of knocked their polling down a little bit, but they're still well comfortably inside the top 25 and are certainly not going to fall out of that. The problem is that when you've got 10 wins, when you're a 10-1 team, you should absolutely be going to some bowl game, even if the bowl selection committee wants to throw you on one of these games that are going to start on ESPN here, I want to say in about the next 2 to 3 weeks, usually like the week before Christmas, ESPN's Bowl Week, where you've got the Tire Care Bowl or whatever fast food restaurant bowl at that point. So the Dukes challenged the NBA. They petitioned, not the NBA, the NCAA. They petitioned the governing body to waive the ineligibility requirement so the Dukes can play in a bowl game. They've got 10 wins. They would have actually been playing in their conference championship game, which is crap. The rule, not the conference. And the NCAA denied the request, to where the Virginia Attorney General was really also kind of consulting to see if maybe legal action could take place on behalf of the university to let them play in a bowl game this year. The only way that James Madison could play in a bowl game this year is if there were not enough teams to fill the 60-plus games or the 30-plus games or whatever it is in terms of the bowl games, if there were not enough eligible teams. Sure enough, there are not enough 6-win eligible teams, so the James Madison Dukes will be going to a bowl game by a technicality and by default this year. So they challenged the NCAA and they win. Excuse me. Still getting over those allergies from a couple of weeks ago. So this is very, very enlightening that The NCAA, with their ridiculously stupid rule, um, tried to actually kind of keep James Madison out. It's not like like Arizona going on bowl probation, or if Michigan would have actually been announced to not be eligible to go to a bowl game after the Harbaugh scandal. Whether more evidence comes out and they end up having to, Michigan's got to vacate whatever they plan on doing, whether it's a Big Ten title this week, whether it's a national championship or anything like that. That's going to remain to be seen. But when James Madison jumped, whenever a school jumps to the Division One level, they actually have to pay a fee to be able to do so. I believe the NCAA just raised it to $11 million for the school. And for a smaller school like a James Madison, and then now it actually came out earlier today that the University of Delaware is going to be jumping the Division One level starting next year. So, which means they're not going to be bowl eligible until 2026. For James Madison to have two national championships, two second place finishes in all of 1AA, been to the playoffs in the in 1AA 8 consecutive years, was bowl eligible for postseason play for a ninth, and now going there on a 10th when they really should not have been, according to the NCAA's ridiculous rule, just shows you that sometimes, you get the best news possible when there's absolutely no positive outcome that's really on the table here, which is hilarious considering the NCAA has their money, from which the school is required to pay up front, which James Madison did for a smaller school in Virginia, paid the $11 million, jumped up, and then beat Division One level competition. Now, the Dukes were one of only 9 teams in all of college football at the Division One level to finish undefeated on the road in 2023, and some of the others we're talking heavy hitters. We're talking Michigan. We're talking Texas. We're talking Florida State. We're talking Georgia. So we're talking heavy hitters here. So that's amazing in and of itself. But then also you add in, the conference that they play in. You're going to have Troy possibly going to a bowl game. You're probably going to have Appalachian State going to a bowl game. Naturally, you're going to have 3 teams from the small little Sun Belt Conference who are going to be in a bowl game. Now, the Dukes finished 7-1 in their division, and Troy also and Troy finished 6-2 in theirs. Appalachian State finished second with an identical 6-2 record, 1 game behind James Madison. So it's going to be Appalachian State playing Troy for the Sun Belt title on Saturday. What the Sun Belt does is it's actually at the higher kind of ranked, or the team with the better record, kind of like how the pros do their playoffs. They don't have a neutral site game like most of the other conferences out there do, but it is actually something that I have heard that they are trying to negotiate to be able to get a neutral site game, which actually would be the right thing to do in that regard. Even Conference USA or the American would actually have a neutral site championship game. We know that we're going to have the Pac-12 in Vegas. We're going to have the Big Ten in Indianapolis. We're going to have the ACC in Charlotte. The Big 12 is going to be in Dallas. Who am I missing here? So all of your major conferences are going to. The SEC is going to be in Atlanta. That's who I was forgetting. But you're going to have all of your major conferences going to be at neutral site, and yet Appalachian State's got to go to Troy. However, if let's say that there was no eligibility limitation to begin with, it would be Troy going to James Madison this weekend. So it's going to be very interesting to see where the Dukes are going to play, where they're going to put all 3 of these teams in. But kudos to the James Madison Dukes. Wonderful story. I think I caught a couple of their games on ESPN Plus earlier this year. Very entertaining team to watch, and just love the fact that they kind of got over on the system, that everything was kind of, I don't want to say stacked against them, but it's a scenario where just play it out and see what happens. But it's also a scenario that it's kind of like how Cincinnati was uh, 2 years ago, that they were in a group of five conference, but they had beaten a couple of ranked teams along the way, including, I want to say it was Notre Dame that year. Memory doesn't exactly serve, as well with college football as it does some of my other sports here. Um, but beat some high quality teams. We're in a smaller conference where the strength of schedule certainly was not going to live up to some of the other teams out there. But when Cincinnati kind of runs the table, wins their conference, there's not a way that the BCS can would or the CFP would have been able to kind of keep them out of the playoff. So let me know what you guys think here. Where do you think that where the Dukes are going to go? Do you actually see a possible scenario where head coach Curt Cignetti, who came on in 2019 and is already third in program history in terms of coaching wins, do you think he might get an offer from a Power Five school that's looking to kind of rebuild, maybe even like a Duke, whose head coach just was announced to leave for Texas A&M? Mississippi State is already filled their head coaching vacancy from a couple of weeks ago, which was the last time I talked to you guys. But do you think that Cignetti is going to stay there, or do you think that he might potentially also run into the scenario that Scott Frost did when he left Central Florida and went to Wisconsin, had a horrific time there, or Luke Fickell when he left Cincinnati and then had a mediocre season this year with Wisconsin? I will be back with you guys maybe later on this week or certainly early next week. Mike and I will be live with you guys on Saturday night for the Wise Guys. We will actually have a little bit of fun because all the conference championship games, with the exception of, I want to say, the Big Ten, will be done. The Big Ten and the SEC, I think, are going to still be going on when we go live at 9. But basically, we're gonna have a little bit of an interactive time with picking where we think everyone's going to get seated, who could potentially be some group of 6 games here. But we're going to actually have some fun. We'll talk, we'll talk a little bit of the NFL. We'll talk some NBA. We'll throw some hockey in there. But I will see you guys very, very soon. Take care.